This podcasting game, Megan, let me tell you, there might be haters out there, but we get nothing but love. I promise you that.
Okay.
So, all right. You are listening to the Liquid Flannel Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Chuck Williams. Joining me in Nebraska is Brendan Williams. Brendan, how you doing, man?
Hey, back for another week.
All right, let's do it. And joining us in Arlington, Texas is the great Matthew Hodges. Matt, how's it going?
It's going good, man. I'm a little sunburned and a little kind of beer toasty because we came back from the great State Fair of Texas tonight.
Oh, nice.
We were out there for most of the day.
What's the weather like down there?
Oh, it's gorgeous. It's like the perfect October weather where it's kind of cool at night, but during the day it's warm enough that you can just be out in a t-shirt, kind of that golden sunlight.
Oh, yeah. We're getting that beauty up in Nebraska as well.
Nice.
And, you know, we've been bringing in some great guests week after week, and this week's no different. Matt, why don't you let the audience know who we've got on the line today?
Yeah, totally. We have kind of sitting in as a fourth chair, not to talk about anything specific, but a good perspective on all of the topics I think we're going to talk about today. Megan, our stand-in Chicago correspondent, and you probably know her better on Twitter as the Meme Witch. Welcome to Liquid Flannel.
Thanks for having me. It's important to note that it is actually Meme Vitch.
Oh, okay.
With the double V's.
Do you do a
Vavitch.
You know,
the vitch?
my mother's maiden name is Swenson, which was Americanized from Svensson back in the day. The double V's, yeah.
That must be our connection, man.
It's Scandinavian, yeah. I'm part Danish and part German, so. But we're not going to talk about my 23andMe tonight. We're going to talk about some more interesting topical things. You know, we've got women in the Boy Scouts now. That's something.
Yeah, I mean, I think we got all kinds of crazy gender wars happening on all kinds of fronts.
There's a whole lot of gendering going on right now. So, you know, hopefully we'll unpack some of that and have a little fun along the way. So without further ado, let's jump right in.
For more than 100 years, the Boy Scouts of America have been teaching boys to be trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, and all the other bits of the Scout law. So, of course, the left has always hated them. But now the Boy Scouts are ditching the first half of their name for the sake of gender equality. The Boy Scouts announced today that girls would be allowed to join the Cub Scouts. Whatever happened to the Girl Scouts? Whatever. Charlie Kirk, the founder of Turning Point USA, he is an Eagle Scout, and he joins us tonight.
I think you're spot on. I think it is a continuation of the left's persistent attack on successful institutions in this country.
I think we could kick it off with Scouty girl. I was going to say Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts.
Hey, man.
I can't even tell anymore.
It's just scouting, man. It's just some good scouting. That's what it is.
It's definitely the lighter topic that we have to talk about, so yeah.
We've got this show. First of all, Megan, do you have any scouting experience of the boy or girl kind?
I watched my brother do cool shit.
He was in Boy Scouts?
That's perfect.
Yeah, he was in the Boy Scouts. Well, I actually only saw him do the boxcar race, or what, you know,
Pinewood
Pinewood Derby. Oh, that was one of the best parts.
That looked pretty dope.
Do you think you would have joined up if you could?
I don't know if I wanted to do it that much then, but I do now. Right. I really want to play with it now.
Right.
You probably got the best of both worlds because you got to go do fun stuff, but you didn't have to go through all the bureaucratic bullshit of doing forms and job interviews all the time or whatever to get advancement in rank and stuff. We got two Eagle Scouts on the podcast here.
Do we?
Oh,
you're Eagle, right?
I'm an Eagle.
And Matt is.
Matt's like a life scout.
No, I was a conscientious objector.
You know, you had all of the qualifications to do Eagle, which I didn't even do a project.
I did literally everything that you needed to do to be an Eagle Scout, and then decided that because the Scouts was anti-gay, I didn't want to have that thing.
Dude, we had a lot of political issues with the Scouts. So the gay stuff, they were super anti-atheist for a while. They were like banning scouts who said they were atheist, and I was atheist when I was in the scouts. I was like, that's kind of not cool.
Right.
I would like to say that I conscientiously objected, but really I was lazy.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about. Like, Brendan was my atheist friend at the time. Like, he was more atheist than I was at the time. But we should back it up, though, and say exactly what happened. So the decision that was made was that the national organization, after being petitioned by a number of like girls, not even young women, but actually girls like Cub Scout age, saying they wanted to be part of Boy Scouts, finally the national organization relaxed the rules where girls can be part of the Cub Scouts, but they're going to be in separate dens from there won't be co-ed Cub Scout dens.
Just the pack.
And then
right.
I'm not sure how it works on the pack level.
I think that'll be
right now
co-ed.
It's just like the Cub Scout level, and they're still segregated by gender.
Well, and then they were going to have a program develop that would allow girls to earn the rank of Eagle Scout and earn the merit badges.
Oh, right.
Eventually.
But I don't think that the decision was made as much about girls wanting to be in Scouts in this overwhelming amount as much as it was the BSA trying to expand their numbers in general, because the Girl Scouts of America was not happy about this at all. In an article in the Omaha World Herald, they were talking about how this was an attempt to reach out to the middle-class siblings of
right.
the already middle-class people in Scouting or affluent people in Scouting. 80%
right.
of kids, 80% of boys aren't in Boy Scouting. I think
it was like,
so.
They spin it like they're like, oh, it's all because we love equality
We
and
wanna
stuff,
bring
but really
more
it's like
people in.
it's a numbers game,
Literally,
100%.
Exactly. Numbers have been down in Scouting on the Girl Scouts and the Boy Scout side, and now they're pulling it away. Girl Scouts were a little bit upset with this move right now. As an Eagle Scout, I personally think that everything that I learned in Scouting is something that should be for anybody that wants to learn it, regardless of your gender, regardless of your gender identity, regardless of your orientation. I think anybody can learn leadership. Anybody can learn environmental conservation and learn a general love for the outdoors. So to that end, I believe anyone should be able to earn the rank of Eagle Scout.
Yeah, I don't know how much. I never did the Girl Scouts, but the only thing I did remember was they went to Build-A-Bear, and I thought I was really jealous about that.
Right.
Well,
you're like, I want to go to Build-A-Bear.
And it's really interesting because as the Boy Scouts have kind of drifted to the right, there was a big push with Boy Scouts, a while back, where a lot of Mormon and explicitly religious groups were getting involved and taking ownership and then saying like, hey, no gay people.
I think the Latter-day Saints are still the biggest contributors to the organization.
Well,
they make up something like 35% of Boy Scout.
Well, apparently a lot of them have been dropping off.
They've been making their own scouting equivalent groups as well, and more right-leaning scouting groups.
Right, since the Boy Scouts kind of bowed under pressure and then started saying like, hey, look, yeah, openly gay people can participate or whatever,
Sure.
even if they still continue to like couch it in limitations. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's cool that they can have co-ed scouting. When I was in Scouts, I always thought, yeah, there's no reason that this should be gender segregated. But
And Brendan, you and I even worked on trying to get an explorer troop going where we could include some of our gal friends. And that's a thing that's existed within scouting for like decades, is like the co-ed high school student scouting.
Yeah, and those groups were able to go to Philmont at least. I remember seeing co-ed explorer scouts out there on the trail.
at the same time that the Boy Scouts is saying, well, hey, now girls can start joining. It's interesting because the Girl Scouts as an organization has actually kind of been moving more leftward as the Boy Scouts kind of get pulled to the right.
Sure.
And so the message of the Girl Scouts is a lot about, women's empowerment, equality, feminism.
Right. Trans acceptance.
Right. It's things like that where they get a lot of flack from the right wing for their acceptance of all kinds of different orientations and everything. But I wonder if the Girl Scouts says like, yeah, sure, boys can join or whatever, but the gender disparity is going to be huge, right? There's such a huge stigma associated with like, oh, you're a boy joining the girl thing,
Right.
versus like, oh, you're a girl joining the boy thing.
Well, it's shameful to be a girl.
Right. Which is fucked up and part of the patriarchy.
Right. But it's sad because I mean, I wish that there was a movement like that in the Boy Scouts side, right? To be more accepting. And I wonder if this will maybe lead to that. But it is really sad because I do think that this will be damaging to the Girl Scouts organization.
Well, I think that it might be a good opportunity for the Girl Scouts organization to adopt some of those things or co-opt some of those things with Boy Scouts and say, yeah, summer camp is a thing that we're going to do,
Right.
you know, high adventures, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the big thing that I've heard as being a big difference between the two organizations, the relative satisfaction with the experience, because I think the Girl Scouts does do more like overt political philosophy sort of stuff, but their activities might not be as much fun. Boy Scouts get to go, I mean, you went camping like every 2 weeks at least when you were in the Boy Scouts. You were out there building fires, and when you went to summer camp, you were swimming and canoeing and shooting guns and climbing rock faces and stuff like that. And I'm not sure if the overall Girl Scout experience is quite the same.
Yeah, and I hope that's something that they can change. I think it would be cool if the Girl Scouts had more of that kind of like outdoorsiness aspect to it, where you're kind of camping and roughing it, where I think in the past it was almost gender normative to say like, well, girls don't like that kind of stuff, you know?
Right.
Sure.
They're pampered little powder puffs. We can't let them be out in the dirt.
Well, right. And, you know, organizational wise, too. I mean, the one thing about Boy Scouts was we were literally having elections in the troop for positions,
Right.
where you had to campaign, you had to get people to support you for whatever reason. And then, you know, when you were doing your service projects, you had to get people to support you, and they wanted to, because then rely on your support to help them with their service projects, like those kind of things. I would
Right.
like someone that has experience with Girl Scouts to let us know if any of that exists in scouting, because I really think that leadership part, that helped get you adjusted to public speaking and things like that. I was going to say maybe both organizations need to look at a merger or something like
yeah,
that.
I don't know if that's ever going to happen.
Right. Money-wise, they're like, we got to hold this sweet money to ourselves.
So to take the topic out, I want to zoom out a little bit. And I think one of the stronger arguments I've heard for keeping the Scouts gender segregated, which is that it's good that kids learn their place within like their gender. Like most boys are going to grow up around men, most girls are going to grow up around women, in that sense, that learning leadership skills within those groups, learning the camaraderie within a gender group is the strength of keeping gender segregated. And I think the counterpoint would be that you can teach kids all that and more if the groups are mixed. So I'm really curious what everyone has to say about that.
Well, my first reaction is like, what's the meaningful difference between why would they need separate gender socialization?
It's definitely a gender essentialist argument that there's something intrinsically different about boys and girls, that it's good for them to learn these skills within a group that's relatively homogenous, even though we know that that's probably, I mean, that's absolutely a fiction.
Well,
But that's how the argument goes.
I think it's probably not good enough. That's
That's a good answer.
And I think the interesting thing is bringing the girls into the Boy Scouting organization, the leadership and the membership is going to be mostly male. So any girl that joins this organization it's just like in the real world, right? Where it's like, it's a male dominated society. You have to integrate yourself into a male dominated, social hierarchy structure. And I think it's harder for a girl to look at some male scout troop leader who's telling them how to do stuff and be like, oh, that could be me. Whereas if it's a woman, it's a lot easier for them to say like, oh yeah, I totally could do that. And I could be in charge of this group. I hope that, I know that the Boy Scouts does have some, like, you can be a female adult or whatever that's involved in it, and they've had that for a while, but
Sure.
I don't think there's gender equality representation in those ranks yet.
And the BSA has also completely dodged that bullet because they're not yet talking about any kind of like mixed group.
Right.
Right.
Chuck, your brother made a really great point on Facebook, I thought. What he said was that it works better in Cub Scouts because the unit is the den, not the pack.
Right.
You just get together with the pack every once in a while. Mm-hmm. But in Boy Scouts, you've got patrols and the troop, but everybody is mixed together all the time. They won't be able to segregate them forever once they get through Weebelows or whatever.
Weebelows.
Which means you're going to have you'll have more like women going as chaperones on campouts and stuff like that. So I wonder if that would start to help what Brendan's talking about.
I get that there's something that can be gained from seeing somebody that you could identify with as the leader and saying, oh, I could do that. If you zoom that lens out a little bit, you're like, oh, wait, I can only do that in the context of leading other women and being separated away from dudes.
That's a good point.
Right.
So my partner has been an active leader for a non-Scout affiliated summer camp for very affluent people for the most part. They have Camp Lincoln for boys and Camp Lake Hubert for girls. It's on the exact same lake. You can have mixed activities like boating and all these other things, but then you can go back to your camp and you can do some of the things where it's like maybe there are things that would be better led, better taught to women by a woman or something, and it could be done there. You can still have the integration as well. I don't think that it has to be either or. And I think that there's something to be learned. The best way to change people's minds about that stuff and to show that it's not a big deal is early on, and maybe to have leadership roles for boys and girls and male and women counterparts, and then you're forcing gender interaction at an earlier age, and it becomes more normal as well.
So Chuck, you're actually in favor of fully integrating like Cub Scout dens at this point.
No, I'm not necessarily talking about dens. I think I'm still focused on the Boy Scout issue. I think that it works having dens be gender specific, and then the packs can decide if they want to be a mixed pack or not. I think that's fine.
I favor militarized force integration.
If people want to do scouts, they should be able to do scouts. Whatever kind of scouts they want to do. I really think that you can benefit a lot in Boy Scouts by adding women to it, because then you're going to have more people interact. I mean, literally, our scout troop was no angels. We literally made fun of the kids that were more effeminate than other kids, I mean, that kind of stuff happens. Maybe having straight up, women in the group would kind of cut down on that, because you don't necessarily have to be the bully of that shit. I know not necessarily, but I'm talking about kids see less of that stuff, I think, in that context.
Well, I want to hear from Megan. I mean, what do you think? I mean, is there value to gender segregated activities? Should nothing be gender segregated? I don't know.
Should everything? Should nothing? Should something?
Pick one.
Your answer goes forever.
I'm really coming up short for a good argument for segregation. And I'm not trying to actually be glib here. I'm
No, it's tough to tease out, and I think probably a lot of these arguments also came about when the Boy Scouts decided to racially integrate. And I looked up a couple of numbers real quick. The first black troop was formed in 1911, which was really close to the Boy Scouts founding, but it took decades for troops to actually integrate, and 1974 was the last when the final segregated Boy Scout Council dissolved. So
damn.
That took a really long time, but I imagine that these arguments must have been kind of the same then.
Yeah, my dad's an Eagle Scout, and he wasn't permitted to go to Philmont Scout Reservation, which is why he made my brother and I go, but because it was literally no black scouts allowed.
The main argument for it is people's comfort level, which I don't I don't have that much sympathy for, to be honest.
Right.
What were the arguments against integrating racial wise. Like,
yeah, I don't have those in front of me, but I'm sure that we are all familiar with the arguments. It's the same argument.
Here it would be.
Yeah, we can imagine.
I think that the main arguments in this case would be like, oh, they want to have like sex with each other or some shit.
Right.
Like, and that's already gay Boy Scouts exist. Like, this is already, it's not a non-issue.
Those gays.
And gay Boy Scouts have existed for a long, long time.
Yeah, there's always been that. I think it literally comes down to people immediately in their mind going to the sexual argument. It's hard for me to parse out anything else.
Well, and it's going to be really interesting for the people who are in this organization and who are going through this transition. I mean, my son is 8 right now, and we went to the school thing and they were like, oh, hey, there's like a Cub Scout thing here. Do you want to join Cub Scouts? And I was like, nah, I don't know. And then the mom was like, oh, little Timmy, tell him like what's cool about Cub Scouts or whatever. And he was like, we get to shoot guns. And I was like, great argument, little Timmy. Like, now I'm even more disinterested. But with the integration thing, like, I kind of want to get in on that. You know what I mean? I was like, I kind of want to be there and be like, let's get in on this and see how this goes, you know?
Seriously.
I could be a part of this.
It's actually been kind of bugging me that the Boy Scouts has been getting woke over the past few years, and it's like, damn it, maybe I need to get re-involved in this.
No.
Especially since at the same time as they're like, oh, we're totally woke and women can come, they're like a chanting Trump rally or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
So that's a little disturbing.
Chanting USA. Like,
you know, I bet if it was integrated with boys and girls, maybe that wouldn't have happened.
Oh, I'm pretty sure it wouldn't have been just a stage of Trump, Tom Price, and Russ Perry. Not Russ Perry. What's that
Rick
dude?
Perry?
Rick Perry. Oh. That dude, that was a Scout dude, man. Yep. My Scout memory is getting triggered, so shout out to Russ Perry if he's
Scoutmasters,
listening.
Secretaries of Energy, you know.
Well, I think that's good. Hopefully we can
People need to free their mind.
We can talk about some more stuff that Megan actually will have some opinions on.
Yeah, we're about to get deep, everybody, when we get back.
This is going to get ugly, possibly.
I had a meeting with a major, top 20 CEO of Fortune 100 company. And he said to me about 2 or 3 years ago, something I thought was very good advice for people who run companies. This is very good advice. He said, I would never have a meeting with a woman without someone else in the room. And this is, unfortunately, this is where we're at today. If you are in a position of power, a Bill O'Reilly, a Donald Trump, anyone who's running a company, you cannot be.
Sean Hannity has never been accused of sexual harassment.
Yeah, chaperones are not.
Sean Hannity has never been accused of sexual harassment. Anderson Cooper has never been accused of sexual harassment. What are you talking about?
I'm saying that.
So any powerful man. Cannot be alone with a woman. That's ridiculous. I have meetings with Jeff Zucker alone all the time. I don't have any problems. Like this would affect women negatively. That you can't even meet privately with your boss.
If you're in a position of power, it's probably not a good idea.
Tucker Carlson has never been.
But that also implies that it's women sort of.
Sometimes there are false accusations.
I mean, look at all of the powerful men at Fox News who have never been accused of sexual harassment, and this is your solution.
I think the lead into this topic is that the internet has been on fire with a lot of gender issues the last
with sex?
2 weeks or so, and I think everyone here has.
I smell sex and candy. Oh, sorry.
It's been a barrage of gender.
It's been pretty amazing. So I mean, just like go down the list, right? There were the Harvey Weinstein allegations, and then there were a bunch of knock-on allegations from that. So things including like Casey Affleck. I did not keep a full list of those. There's been quite a bit happening with issues of sexuality and punching up or punching down with kind of the Dirtbag Left podcast sphere. There's been other allegations thrown around on Twitter and kind of an overall sense of kind of a floodgate around conversations of sexuality, gender relations, kind of breaking open just in the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, and it feels like it's, in some ways it feels like it's breaking open like harder than it has in the past, and I don't know if that's just where I am in life, and it's just like, holy shit.
Right. Well, and also being like on left Twitter or having just Facebook friends whose political views you like to see will kind of amplify that.
Well, I think the thing that's been the most striking for me is that, like, these are things that I've been pretty well obsessed with for the past, like, 10 years or so.
Right.
Like, these are things that I've thought about and felt about for a very long time.
Sure, and things that you're pursuing in your program and actually digging into the research. And so when this came up, it was like the least surprising thing in the world to me. I guess I was sort of surprised that, like, that he was, like, exposed, or that people are, like, caring about it as much. But it's been kind of jarring to see how many people are talking about it, which is, like, a weird thing to be jarred by, because it's like, I think, like, I don't quite know how to trust what this is gonna do. Like, is this just another time that this comes up and we talk about it and then nothing changes? Or like, or does the fact that so many people are talking about it actually mean something? And it's like, I don't want to, it's hard to deal with your hopes getting up for real meaningful change. Sure. It's like, goddamn, another Obama, or well, just I mean, it just hit me earlier today that we're having, you know, right now, hashtag Me Too is trending and has been trending on Twitter, but roughly 2 weeks ago we had the biggest mass shooting the country's ever had, and everyone was really obsessed with that for about the time it took for them not to be, and now we're on to another thing, and I don't know that anything's come of that either. So I hear what you're saying, and I think that there is a question of, is this just the latest outrage, and in 10 days we're going to have another thing that everyone is focused on without any meaningful lasting change?
That's the way they get you.
I think you're spot on that one. But at the same time, you know, here's my theory. My theory is that with Trump, I mean, there's so much built into this whole concept of, you know, male-dominated society, and Trump as a sexual abuser, an admitted sexual abuser, being voted into the highest office in the land, controlling the national discourse in, you know, such a way that I feel like it is in some way contributing to this other backlash and saying, like, well, look, it didn't work for Trump, but that doesn't mean it won't work for everybody. And it's just bringing this, you know, it's kind of like the dam is bursting in a way. So in some ways, in the short term, I think it will be the outrage of the week, because that's just the era that we're in.
Right.
But I'm hopeful that in the long term, Trump will be our last admitted sexual abuser president, because people will realize, like, that is not cool. Like, and I feel like that can be part of Trump's legacy of destroying this institution by being so horrible that people finally woke up and said, like, oh, you know what? Our society is riddled with prolific sexual abusers that everyone knows about, and everyone just pretends to ignore.
I wonder, I mean, I gotta be curious about what it was like after Andrew Jackson, or somebody just, like, overtly monstrously genocidal. Like, most of the other presidents, or at least, I actually don't know. I'm not a historian.
Well, but most of their genocides took place overseas, at least, where people weren't. It wasn't right in your backyard.
Able to hide it. Yeah. So.
I don't know. It's tough to try to look for the silver. It's tough to look for the silver lining, you know?
Right. Again, it has to be something with actual action. It can't just be us making a hashtag about it. It can't just be an ice bucket challenge. Well, shoot, an ice bucket challenge actually did something. You know, I mean, the thing is, we can't just be like, man, that's a shame. It's also a shame when unarmed people of color get shot by the police. Those are shames, but they're not shames that I'm going to do shit about.
Right.
You know, it's like, that bothers me, but it also bothers me that some of the anger gets completely misplaced, and some of the things that need to be attacked are more systemic than what we're choosing to focus our outrage on.
Right. Well, and Chuck, I'm really glad you framed it that way, because I think it's a nice lead into one of the things that I left off the list, which is Bernie Sanders being chosen as a speaker at it's the Women's March. Now that the Women's March is an organization and they're actually doing kind of direct action and organizing and stuff, they invited Bernie Sanders to be a speaker, and there was huge backlash against that from some usual suspects on Twitter, the very hashtag still with her sort of people on Twitter who saw this as a huge, just a blow against women's issues that they would invite Bernie Sanders to this thing.
Man, I don't know about that.
But what do you think, Megan?
Yeah.
Man, this is honestly, this is something, it's just so hard for me to care about it, because it's just, because it's like, I mean, I know it's actually like, it actually matters, but it's just like, oh my God, I'm so tired of this, like, I'm just so tired of the Hillary
this part
crowd.
of it. Yeah.
Like, just
like this isn't progressing the conversation. This isn't getting the party to where it needs to be.
Oh man, yeah. You can go down a huge hole on this question. I think there's a lot of this is my hot take on this. Okay, I think there's a lot of performative outrage from Hillary Clinton supporters who are still very much Hillary Clinton supporters because they hold a specific grudge against Bernie Sanders. And I'm not going to condemn them. This is damning with faint praise. I think they actually don't know why they don't like Bernie Sanders to a large extent.
Right.
And so you've got a lot of performative outrage about this thing. Overall, it seems like the Women's March organizers are doing a pretty good job. They've got, I mean, it's like 48 out of 50 speakers are women, and women of note. Not Hillary Clinton, by the way, who declined the invitation. So, I mean, I think that needs to be included in that conversation also.
Hashtag I'm with the person that decided not to be here.
No, I think that's right, and particularly because a lot of the Women's March organizers are women of color. They're out there on Twitter saying like, "Oh, it's so great to be told by a bunch of like white hashtag still withers that I'm doing this wrong and that they should be in charge of the thing that we organized and, sent out the invitations for."
See, that's the thing. It's easy to pile on women of color that are actually in this movement.
Right.
Making things happen. I get the idea of, well, if I'm an ally, do I need to be in the foreground or do I need to kind of fall back and just let things happen? I think that there's probably a pretty good discussion among the group. Hopefully. I didn't realize it was as big of a deal as it was. But I'm not as online. Like, I'm not... this week, I was proud to realize that I'm not as on Twitter. So
it's probably better for your mental health, honestly.
Like, I know there's a real conversation to be had here. And I know that, like, there are people who are trying to have it. But there's also just, like, so much personal grudge and just so much, like, pettiness that's going into it. And
exactly.
And of course there is, because it's like we're humans trying to deal with our shit.
Right.
That's
And literally everybody wrote stupid shit when they were a freshman in college that could come back to haunt them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my God. So I'm maybe a little bit like too hard on my political others. But like it's just like there's only so many things you can attend to. There's so much that's like there's so much happening all the time that you just have to give up on some of the shit, right? Like
right. Like you feel like you're on a treadmill and you're just ready to let the legs go out from under you.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I think that's as good a place as any to introduce this topic, which honestly, by most people's standards, does not matter at all. But it's a huge deal.
Thank you
for
prefacing it with that.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the Dirtbag Left and the very bad couple of weeks that they've been having.
Yeah.
Okay, first, could I ask you to define what the Dirtbag Left is?
Okay.
For the listeners, mostly, but kind of partially.
Yeah. Okay, certainly. No, I'm happy to do it. The thing is, I'm not sure there is a solid definition of the Dirtbag Left. Okay. I can tell you
there is a Wikipedia page, but
I can tell you what signifies it for the most part, and I can tell you the major players. Okay, so we're talking about mostly a podcast movement of a few different podcasts. The flagship one being Chapo Trap House, then also Cumtown, and there's like a whole network of other kind of dirtbaggy.
Street fight, you're sure.
This is it.
Cumtown's not political. They make the claim they are not, they're not trying to pass, they're not Dirtbag Left.
Everything's
I think
political.
They're not the boys.
Right. So they're the archetypal like dirtbag crowd.
Okay. Well, and that's what makes this difficult, because what you're talking about mostly is a bunch of some people who are very online and really like irony. They like to make ironic jokes. They like to make ironic jokes in order to point out foibles in, I mean, they are hard lefties, which means they're also criticizing like liberal democracy and its failings. And they do that by being edgelords for the most part. They don't claim to be a political movement, but they get claimed to be a political movement.
Well,
if you're also very online.
Oh my god, this is a ridiculous landscape to try to describe right now. But
this is sociology. We're digging in.
It is such a weird space.
Deep dive.
So it's like, so there's like sort of, there's different populations with overlap in the Venn diagram.
Right.
There's the dirtbag crowd who are just like diehard irony edgelords who are basically just nihilists. They just like refuse to feel.
Yeah.
They're like they refuse to feel anything that isn't like amusement and mirth or like rage.
Yeah, or disgust. I think it's usually the amusement usually comes from disgust.
Right.
Right.
It sounds like you're talking about masculinity.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that wrapped up in this.
So but it's like, and then there's the, like the Chapo and the Chapo adjacents and whatever, like a lot of them, there's also like a lot of it is just online left from before, like this various like other spheres from which leftists came online, like I don't know, the different forums.
Oh man, and there are a bunch of them too. I mean, like some of these people came from Something Awful, which was an aptly named website because it was something awful, and a lot of the people were super hard lefties who also spent a lot of time, trolling like crazy and, infiltrating other groups and taking them down from inside.
Great memes though.
Oh, sure.
Good memes.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, they can be very funny. That's
so
okay. So
what's the controversy
so
this week here?
So we've kind of defined the Dirtbag Left. Here's what's been going on with them. The Chapo guys made a Bill Cosby joke. Then
apologize.
But then also a couple of their friends have been outed as being really gross sexual abusers. In the floodgate that Harvey Weinstein was the last peg in.
Yeah. And I think it's like the actual people that they are don't matter. I don't want to give them that much attention specifically, like the dirtbag leftists themselves.
Right.
I think it's some of it's just like that ironic distance, that like that specific way to cope, I guess, with the world is so it's like very powerful for them, I guess, but it's also powerfully noxious for everyone around them too, and they like can't comprehend that like their coping mechanism hurts other people.
Right. It's a total lack of empathy, and I think it's only exacerbated by the current political climate, right? Where they say, well, there's a total lack of empathy on the right, so it justifies for there to be a total lack of empathy on the left too, right? Because you got to fight fire with fire.
Right.
But yeah, they forget that it's like, oh, actually, there's a reason that we don't like that. It's because it's horrible.
Sure. I think when it comes to the two, it's hard for me to like put Come Town and Chapo Trap House in the same boat in this particular issue.
I only do that
in terms of what people are looking to them for.
They interact with each other a lot. Like they know each other.
The thing is, the Chapo guys, there was outrage about the Bill Cosby joke. It was a stupid fucking joke. And they apologized for that joke. If somebody doesn't want to accept that apology, they're well within their rights, and I can respect their arguments for that. If somebody is fine with that go ahead.
Well,
Megan.
I was just realizing that I don't think that we have, like, actually... I might have cut Matt off from actually describing what had happened.
It's so deep.
I don't
it's
think
so
what
deep.
the joke was.
Describe
Okay.
what even happened, yeah.
I think those two events are...
what events happened?
The events were the Bill Cosby tweet and then the outing of Sam Criss and Matt Taibbi as being...
No! Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's difficult to edit.
It's okay.
No, that's fine. Your objection is noted, but that's...
Go ahead.
I mean, some of this stuff is self-admitted. My question is...
Yeah.
Chuck, your point is really well taken. I think that my broader question is that if you kind of act like an asshole a lot and you end up attracting assholes, is it unreasonable for people to then go, are you also an asshole? And that's what's kind of bugging me about this, because I mean, I listen to Chapo, you know, I've never listened to Come Town. I don't listen to many of the associated podcasts, but I do follow a lot of these people on Twitter. And at a certain point, it's like, man, do I want to admit that, you know? Does it turn out that these guys are just kind of assholes, and I don't really want people to associate me with their brand?
I follow Donald Trump, and that dude is kind of an asshole. And no, I get it. I get it.
Yeah,
but you know, okay, go ahead, Megan.
Well, I think that it's getting to like what is fandom, and like
right.
You follow Trump, but you're probably not a Trump fan, is my guess, right? Like there's and there's a very different set of behaviors that comes with fandom. Like when you when these figures in your popular culture sphere become a part of your identity, and you're willing to like
if you're going to get on if you're going to get on Twitter and cape for them over like a rape joke that they made, or like a Jared Fogle joke or something.
Well, I'm definitely not caping, but I love how limited our view is when we have these flashpoints. We don't even look at the fact that the only reason you know that Bill Cosby is a rapist is because of a rape joke. Because the whole media press came to be because of Hannibal Buress's sketch.
Right.
And that was literally a joke that people weren't like, man, Hannibal Buress leads the left. What the fuck is he doing talking about rape, and people laughing in a room about it? That literally brought something to light in a way that was positive. And this whole Chapo thing couldn't have existed without that initial joke that was focused about a rape. So I want to be able to at least put that part in there.
No, for sure. I think there are ways to like. I don't think rape categorically is like that's a huge category. Like there are ways you can have that you can joke about it. It shouldn't be a totally off-topic taboo. Or like
same with race. I believe.
Well, and the original Chapo Cosby tweet actually wasn't. I believe it fundamentally was not a rape joke. It was a joke that involved a rapist. But the joke was on completely different targets, you know? But they're so steeped in their irony thing that that's not going to be apparent to most people, and particularly not people that they ought to get along with on like 99% of issues. who are going to deliberately take it out of context.
So the joke itself was they were standing over the Cosby star. And
on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
And the caption is something like, try and take down this statue, libs.
Yep.
Or something.
Right. Yeah, take down this memorial or something.
Yeah, and so the biggest problem in my mind is I see that they were what target they were aiming for and what critique they were trying to make, but it was just so profoundly tone deaf. Like, they did not, they didn't read the room at all.
And particularly because this came just hot on the heels of the Harvey Weinstein revelations.
Right. And it was like, are you being an opportunist? Right? Like, what are you trying to do right now? Like, what is happening that you think this is a good idea to make this joke right now? It just probably didn't cross their minds that it was a bad idea, because it's not something that they're feeling in the same way. And they have, it's hard to know that unless you're, listening to people who are going through it. And thus is our problem here.
But I feel like this was lesson learned. I mean, I feel like they realize now how tone deaf they were. And that part, if people want to own them on it, I'm totally fine with that. I don't think that these revelations about Matt Taibbi or the other dude, I don't know. I'll just go ahead and first preface by saying I don't know the extent of the relationship. I do listen to the Free Show because I'm woke but broke, but I do hear Matt Taibbi on there a lot. But I also hear Matt Taibbi on Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman, and I fucking love her, and I love that show. And I know Amy's not down with rape culture, but I know that these are two shows that have some of the better conversations in the left sphere. Now, to what extent Chapo knew about Matt Taibbi's rape culture and that kind of shit. I read some of it. It was gross and disgusting and juvenile and sounded like fraternity days, but even on a more juvenile level. I don't know their extent of the knowledge of it. If they knew something about it, that's crazy. But I feel like the easier thing to do would be to call out the guests that go on that show and say, hey, you're about to go on a show with people that think it's okay to joke like this. Are you cool with that? If you're not cool with that, then you need to address it on the show. You need to call them out. You're the person that can put them in the hot seat. Sometimes, I don't know.
Yeah,
sometimes I just feel like we direct it in the wrong ways. Directing anything right now at Cumtown, there's some sort of political leaders, or I don't look to them for anything more than I would look to Bill Maher. And I happen to think they're funnier than Bill Maher. And that's the only reason I listen. And sometimes they joke about race, and sometimes I laugh at it. But it doesn't...
I think I get it. I don't give really a shit if people, want to enjoy it and, listen to it and, that's fine. We all have our... we all have our shit that we get into. Our shameful vices.
All yourselves are problematic.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I think to me the bigger issue is when they do something that's clearly shitty or crosses the line for whatever reason. Just being able to acknowledge that is not getting so wrapped up that you're being attacked because you're this brand that you consume is threatened.
Right.
There's just have a proper level of shame.
Sure.
Or not shame, but distance. Have some critical distance from what it is that you're all about. I don't know.
I think you're totally right about that. And I think it also speaks to a couple of things that Chuck brought up sort of implicitly in what he was saying. One of them is that you can apologize for something you did online, but what you did online lasts forever. And that's a whole problem in and of itself, because it basically creates an environment where no one ever gets better, and it speaks to people holding... It's kind of the same issue. People will hold a grudge and they'll keep bringing things up over and over, even if you've atoned for the thing, and even if even if Chapo has been better in the past like week or something, they had a really bad week because they just had these things that were kind of associated with them that also you can look at their track record on these issues and it paints a picture,
What's the track record? I mean, because I get that everyone's pointing to these Jared Fogle jokes, but I don't know the other stuff that they're doing online. Like, what else aside? I hear the Jared Fogle jokes on the show, and I'm trying in my head to understand that this is a difference between how the Tipper Gores of the world blamed, violent rap music and video games on mass shootings back in the day. I'm trying to hold ourselves to the same standards, but I know that these aren't the good old days. I just want to know, like, what they're saying aside from the Jared Fogle shit.
Yeah, I mean, so I think I'm sort of hesitant to get like mired down and trying to like litigate.
Yeah, I don't think we're trying to start a liquid flannel Chapo beef here.
But like,
well,
I think
obviously,
people pull shit. I think what you are pointing to something that is really important is like, what does accountability look like on such a large scale? And it's a fucking hard ass question to answer because, I mean, if you're too forgiving, like nothing changes. If you're too hard, then it drives polarization and it like forces division. And it's like, it's so different across like different contexts of what that balance should be. And it's such a complicated question and people come in so hard about it.
Sure.
Well, I think my perspective on this whole thing hasn't been like, I think all of these guys are awful people. Just out of a sense of self-interest, it seems like you would dial it back for a while. Dial it back. Read the fucking room, like you said before,
and
Megan.
That's because of consequences, right? That's like they're experiencing the consequences of their behavior.
How long ago was the Bill Cosby joke? Because I get associating the Chapo bad week to that.
Oh man, it was either 500 years ago or it was literally like 10 days ago, because that's how fast shit moves.
Okay. Literally, like, I don't know.
So this is misogyny in the left has been going on for a really long time, just as racism in the left is. And I think what's a big part of the response here is that, like, so for so long, it's been riding under the cover of irony, right? Mm-hmm. And like, whether it's ironic or not, sometimes certain types of jokes in certain places or with certain people will just, it causes harm. And like, it doesn't matter if the intention is to make light of something, but it's still like hurting people.
Right. Sure.
And that's what's being pushed back on, is that I think it's that specific, like in the left, because we actually are trying to facilitate behaviors that are good and not harmful. Like, I think that maybe it's just that, like, we're trying to, like, hey, guys, this particular, well, that's what I'm thinking about, maybe, because that's what my job is to think about. Right. I guess.
Well, the way that I look at it is very simple. It's like, I go back to Spider-Man, and with great power comes great responsibility. And whether or not Chapo wants to admit it, like, they have a ton of followers. They're raking in literally tens of thousands of dollars a month.
Over $80,000.
Wow. $80,000 a month from doing their freaking show or whatever. And this is what they choose to do with their platform. That, to me, that's disgusting. And I'm glad they apologized for it or whatever, but they have a ways to go to show that they are actually sorry, and that they're not just sorry that they got called out. But it's like, when you go from having a show like ours where a couple hundred people listen to it or whatever, to having a show
That's very generous, Brent. Thank you for making us sound good.
I don't even know what their listenership is.
I feel
but
a flutter
like
in my heart right now.
Hundreds of thousands
200
of people. I feel like you do have a responsibility to watch what you say a little bit more closely than when you were a garage podcast or whatever that no one cared about and no one listened to, and you made $0.
Man, yeah.
I mean, it's a shitty like humble brag kind of thing to say, but we're on episode 58, and I don't think we've ever made light of rape, have we? I don't think that's ever happened.
Well, maybe not us, but other people. Maybe, I don't know.
I don't know.
Well,
I think the left is looking too hard for heroes in the wrong places.
And that, you know what?
It's like people that are looking for rappers to be heroes.
And that is the thing that makes me mad.
I mean,
right.
Go ahead. You, Brendan, you were saying something.
So the thing that does make me upset is that we're so consumed with this like self-analysis of like, is the left good enough? Is the left pure enough or whatever? Where at the same time, everybody on the right is like, oh, a Democrat did sexual assault? All of a sudden we think sexual assault is bad. Before we said it wasn't a big deal.
Right.
But now we're like, oh, a Democrat did it? We hate it. You guys are gross for liking that. I can't believe you like that guy or whatever. And it's disgusting how easily they're able to pull that off. And
flawless.
On Fox News over again and again.
As if most fucking Democratic voters ever knew who Harvey Weinstein was before this thing happened versus all of the people who actually voted for Donald Trump.
Right. Again, it's like, I'm a person who has gone through literally every perspective here. Like, I have been in a situation where I've been sexually assaulted. I've literally stopped what I thought was sexual assault in my fraternity house at a college party and have lots of people that were there to witness it. And I was all wrong and embarrassed or whatever, but I saw something and I fucking acted, man. I feel like it's so easy for people, especially liberals on the left, to sit behind a computer and to act like Twitter world is the real world and to not actually be out and be fucking doing shit, man. And to be looking for other heroes at the same time, to be setting some example when we literally have a president that sets no example for anybody. We need to be fucking getting up and doing shit. If you don't like what they're saying, stop listening. Tell them and harass the people that go on the show. Just say, hey, this is the show that you are associating with. I think it's easier than busting the dime bag kid, which is what America's all about, busting the low level person and letting all the big shit go. This is still going to be a problem whether or not Chapo shuts down over this, which they won't. But, this will still be a problem in the society. And and this week, another thing I saw that was also an issue was the fact that so many people wanted to pin as many things as possible on Chapo to the point where it almost got ludicrous for me. It's like people that have, histories of racism online talking about a number one fan having a history of doing something since they were 9, something that literally Chapo couldn't have known that they were attracting, I don't think, from what I've heard in the free content. Right.
Well, and you're talking about this whole issue of like guilt by association online, and that absolutely happens.
Right.
Well, sure. Dude, you're talking to a black person. You're talking to a person who this country has literally used rape as an excuse to lynch people. I mean, this was talked about in the entertaining novel To Kill a Mockingbird. And nobody was shutting To Kill a Mockingbird down about that. Although people are now shutting it down because the N-word's used, not because we're talking about the trope of black men going after white women, a trope that is still used today to kill people in South Carolina churches.
Or the trope of white people going after black men using the excuse. Yeah.
And a person was lynched in fucking Omaha, dude, over that kind of shit. It's like, so black people, I think, do have a natural tendency to get a little bit of radar going when allegations are coming up and say what's going on behind this, because for a lot of rape allegations, you know, they've been political and been racially based and used for disproportionate sentences. I'm not trying to be a men's rights activist. I hope I'm not coming off to anybody as that.
No, this is real.
I'm coming off as someone that is so intersectional in the middle of the intersection that I'm going to get hit by an 18, you know, because I'm like, how the fuck can I move? I'm fucking paralyzed. You know, I have different role models than Chapo. I definitely would love to emulate the money they make, but obviously I don't look to them for that. So I don't know, man. You know, I'm not ready to dump all the shit on them.
Yeah, I think that's completely legit. I think what you were talking about with just looking for like heroes in all the wrong places is what sticks out to me.
Mm-hmm. That's an episode title right there.
But some of what I am like pushing back on, I think, is just like these guys do get some like hero worship. They are building a lot of clout, and I think Brandon, what you were talking about, they do have a platform. And for me, like, I don't give a shit if somebody wants to like keep listening to them and enjoy their product, right. Their brand, but like, don't get so upset when something they do or they cross the line and people react to that.
Right.
Sure.
Right. Well, and to bring it back to the Boy Scouts, I feel like as a white male of privilege, I can barely listen to Chapo. So I can't imagine why anyone who's not a white male of privilege will listen to it. Chuck, I understand that you're a big fan or whatever.
Guys, you all, I need to reiterate this on the show for people. I literally listened to Vanguard America's podcast to try to understand, because it's like, man, there's got to be a dialogue eventually. Yeah. And it's like, if I don't even know what I'm mad at, it's going to be a lot harder for me to bring up points. So.
For sure.
If I can listen to that, I can
to me
listen to
strikes
Chapo.
me like that's a very different, like you're engaging that with a critical eye. Which I think a lot of people are not doing with the shit that they enjoy more than like an ironic enjoy. I'm just like, holy shit, you fucking people wearing diapers to.
Oh yeah, well, that's teasing the high note, I think, a little bit.
That will be a good high note for sure.
But I think what's important is being able to maintain that. Be able to engage in that critical process when your favorites do something noxious.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and it seems to have been the lesson of the past couple of weeks, you know. I mean, you've seen the same arguments for like Roman Polanski and Woody Allen for decades, right? Sure. Like, you know that these guys have done ugly stuff. At a certain point, there's some mental calculus that has to happen between I'm willing to enjoy this person's product despite what I know about them personally, or they've crossed a line, at which point I'm going to completely dissociate from them. And yeah, I'm not saying that Chapo's anywhere near that level, but I think it does speak to fucking Bill Cosby, which came up in this context.
Michael Jackson, or
honestly, yeah, and I think it was more nebulous with Michael in terms of people of color as a collective body or something, but with Bill Cosby, I think this has already been the Chapo thing that everyone's talking about now has been played out by people of color with the Bill Cosby revelations, because literally Bill Cosby was people's escape for, like, this is what a model family is. Even if I think my family is shit for making me hike up that mountain, I could tune into some Bill Cosby and see what a normal family is like, or a cool family. And that was like everyone's ideals. And that was people living out, escaping through entertainment again. And then this came up. And then it's like, now you have to separate the entertainment from
So it was like Full House for black people.
Dude, seriously, I don't care if we lose any dozens of the fans we have. F. That show is so dumb. Thank you, Megan. High five over Skype. There
Even
we
though
go.
I do have Kitty Gibbler as my avatar.
There you go. Yeah, that's a great avatar.
Love is exposed.
Right. Yeah.
No, but I think honestly, like for people on the left, we don't have a lot of entertainment that caters to the left.
Right.
Like that's not. There's not a lot out there that's not like insightful about. Like a lot of the Chapo guys are like actually genuinely insightful about a lot of systemic bullshit, and so it's refreshing and it's easy to identify with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like they're up against different, they're like a lot of the same bullshit that we are, and it's like so refreshing to hear somebody be able to talk about something or say something in a way that makes the pain a little bit less painful.
Right. Well, and to
a
add
little
to
less
that
real.
Also, I think there's a very important distinction to be made that doesn't seem to have been made online in terms of how outraged people are. People were super pissed off about Chapo this week. They were also pissed off about Dan Schneider from Nickelodeon, who seems like if you're going to be outraged about anything, it should be that guy.
Yeah.
Well, and for what it's worth, the white nationalist groups are outraged about that.
Oh, they're all
guy.
over it.
So
they're all over
Unity
it.
at last. Finally, we can come together.
Exactly. We can share everything.
Oh my God. It is actually horrifying to, because this is something that I only learned about who Dan Schneider is like last week through this thread on Twitter about that. There was a lot of evidence to point to this guy being super shady. And,
a lot of, I don't know, taking pictures of kids' feet, like young girls' feet.
A lot of pictures, like cuddling with his co-stars, and just this very explicitly it's like boundary violation is what as somebody who's worked with kids, there's just like to keep a distance that's expected, and maybe that's just a part of the perfection.
Not just personally, but it also makes its way into the work with also, I mean, there are actual anal sex jokes in Nickelodeon shows now. I mean, Rocko's Modern Life was a little risque at the time. Ren and Stimpy definitely pushed the envelope.
That Ren and
a little bit.
Stimpy got pretty whack, bro.
But
pornography.
Yeah.
But those were cartoons.
Yeah, but I don't,
actual children.
Yeah, I don't remember actual children like acting out anal sex or like a forced blowjob.
I will say, actual children in Korean animation sweatshops did draw those cartoons frame by frame. So sorry, guys.
Yeah, we got to play that little clip from the Clerks cartoon now.
Yeah. All your faves are problematic.
Right.
Man. Well, okay.
Yeah. The thing for me though that's kind of sad from all of this is, in a way,
everything.
Literally and the thing, everything.
Right,
obviously, everything is horrible about this. It literally feels like somebody just took a knife to the sky and pulled down, and like all the rape fell out. Like all of the world's rape just fell out.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the thing that I'm afraid of the most is people using this as like the political rape Olympics, where it's like, well, look at Hollywood, and Hollywood's crawling with liberals, and Hollywood's crawling with Jewish folks, and those people are getting all the gold medals in these events of assault. I don't want it to be like that. But I want people to say, look, man, sexual assault is fucked up anywhere. It's fucked up when Christians do it, when Muslims do it, black people, white people, gay people, straight people. Like, it happens everywhere. It's a human condition that we all have to stand up and say no, but we're going to totally turn this into something we can use for our super PACs to dig up dirt on people and all of that stuff.
Absolutely.
And so what's happening with Dan Schneider specifically is very illustrative of this, exactly what you're talking about. Like with original unearthing of this narrative came from 4chan. Like 4chan has been talking about this for a long time.
Yeah, Dan Schneider's been a shared joke with them. He's been a meme for a long time.
Right. Yeah, so it's coming from
questionable.
The source is questionable repute.
Right.
See, but I'm really glad that you brought that up because to me, I feel like part of this is that we can't just rely on our voting strategy of saying, oh, don't vote for that because that's racism over there. We literally have to look at what is being put out there. I mean, because if this stuff has been circulating forever and no one paid attention to it just because it's a racist person that did the research on it, that's fucking bullshit. And that literally contributes to the problem more than what people think just by dismissing it over racism.
Absolutely. And you can they might have woven this narrative, but the strands with which they wove that came from
dream weaving.
It is an undeniable, the empirical support for it is a very solid, it's a very cohesive picture.
Right.
It doesn't fucking matter who wove it.
Right. Well, but the thing I guess it comes down to me is that, and this reminds me of when we were talking about how when all these shootings of black people were happening, it was like, well, if they just get body cameras and everyone can see what's going on, then that'll fix the problem, right? And it's like right now we're in the phase where it's like, well, if everyone just knows how much sexual assault and all this rape culture that's happening, clearly if everybody could just realize that that's happening, that will solve the problem. And it's
not enough.
No.
Right. Nope.
Yeah.
You have to go farther, and no one knows what that magic solution is. There is not a magic solution where you flip the button and say, well, now that everyone realizes it, it's fixed. It's like, well, it's not fixed. It's still happening, and just now everyone knows that it's happening, and you need to go a step beyond that.
Yep.
And no one really knows what
Don't talk about it, be about it.
Yeah, and I think to get back to your point earlier, Chuck, about how it gets weaponized, what's been pretty horrifying to me to watch is the way that the white genocide crowd and the MAGAs, how they're going in and they're right now they're making it about him being Jewish. They're going in and they're like, the Jewish perversion and just all the dumb shit.
Oh, sure.
And they're making it,
he's a
and they are
liberal or
weaponizing
whatever,
it. Right. And so in some ways, part of what has comes up to my mind is actually no, the left needs to care about this too. The left needs to figure out how to take this seriously and counterbalance that spin, that narrative, the distortion they're putting out there.
The distortion that is, when we do it, it's locker room banter. When you guys do it, it's actual degeneracy.
Yep.
Yeah. 100% agreed. We have to hold them accountable. We have to say, dude, you can't. No.
Yeah. You can't do this bullshit.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now we've got enough ammunition where it's like, okay, well, here's your tweets about your outrage for all of this stuff. And now here's your candidate doing all of this stuff.
Oh, but they're so good at rationalizing.
Oh, absolutely.
The gymnastics. Yeah.
So it can't be for them. It can't be to fight them. It has to be to for the people who are watching.
For the people watching.
The kids, the literal children that are on Twitter watching this. Literally 12-year-olds follow Dan Schneider on Twitter and they tweet to him, and these fuckers they're taunting him. They're the anime Nazis are all over this. They're all about oh, you're next, Dan, and they're fighting with children, and when they're tweeting at him about bring back Jake and Drake or Drake and Josh.
I want to watch cartoons.
And they're getting,
your hero's a rapist.
Yeah, exactly. And they're getting these anime Nazis coming in being that show's going to be canceled forever because he's going to jail because he's a rapist. And it's and this is happening. There's a vacuum on this. This is a real thing. Oh my God. Oh, it's so distressing.
Well, yeah. Speaking of Nazis fighting kids, did you all ever see that picture of neo-Nazi trying to shout
Girl Scout
down
or
the
whatever?
Girl Scout.
Yeah.
That's so uplifting.
That was in like
okay.
Eastern Europe or whatever.
Oh, for sure. It was in Borno or something.
Sorry, I thought you were where you were going with that is, did you all see the neo-Nazis as children? And I thought that was going to be...
That's
They are so adorable.
Yes. Let's bring that out for a high note.
How's that for a transition, boys?
Oh my God.
Great segue. We'll be right back.
Oh, there he is.
Sorry, do I know you?
Bobby Baloney. How you doing?
Gary Royce.
Gary Royce, yeah, I've been hearing about you.
How's that?
I've been coming down here a few weeks now. Everyone's saying nice things.
It's supposed to be anonymous.
Tell you what, why don't you and me, we go down to the children's hospital, we go around back where the dumpsters are, and we go in there and have ourselves a little diaper feast. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Oh, I got you.
Oh, you're joking.
I'm testing you. I'm making sure you stand on the program here, huh? You gotta be a good boy.
Yeah.
You gotta stay away from them diapers.
Yeah, I'm trying, but it's a hard road.
It's hard. You gotta stay in the program. You gotta do what they say. You gotta stay focused.
Working hard, doing the meetings.
I'm freaking proud of you, Gary Royce. You know that.
Trying.
Okay. So, for me, can you imagine, back to that scouting for real quick, the dynamic? I mean, my brother and I got Eagle Scout on the same night. I was 15 years old. My brother was 14. And it was because high school, you didn't want to be a Boy Scout in high school because it was considered kind of nerdy.
It was rough.
Yeah, you didn't want to wear your uniform to school because you...
Oh, no, we didn't wear a fucking uniform to school. Are you kidding me? Was that a thing?
No, I hope not.
Some people did. Kids that couldn't afford to not wear it or couldn't afford to go home and change before scouting and stuff.
Right.
They literally did. And people did get teased a little bit. But can you imagine if girls were in scouts and it literally just became a new social shift where everyone's like, dude, I'm doing scouts, you know?
Yeah.
That's where all the cool kids are. That's where we're trying to impress people.
Dude.
I'm going to build the biggest fire, you know. I'm going to recycle the most cans, you know.
That shit's going to be important. That's just gonna be fucking
seriously.
important.
Yeah, actually, I'll come out batting hard for this one because that would prepare kids better for being adults in so many ways. Being able to do those things intergender, including all of the obvious like dating and making out and heavy petting that's going to happen while that happens.
Right.
You know?
Which will still happen in the fucking collapse of capitalism. Like, all that shit's still going to be happening. Teens are going to be banging.
That's gonna be happening in literally any high school endeavor ever, anywhere, anyway. So, like, why not in Scouts also? You know, like, you can actually teach kids how to be responsible.
Yeah, I mean, those skills are going to be really important in the post-apocalypse.
Exactly.
You know, it's crazy. I can't wait for the fall of capitalism because I will actually gain economic status rather than lose it. You know, like, it's literally going to be like my Fight Club ending. You know, like that's going to be it for me. So, but enough about my high notes. I think we had something that we wanted to talk about here from our dear friends over at Turning Point USA. Wasn't that something you wanted to talk about?
It was definitely a highlight to the week for me.
Yeah.
It's honestly, it's the kind of thing that if politics wasn't so bad right now, it would be the news for weeks and weeks. Because it's just so fucking dumb and hilarious.
But on the other hand, I think it's the fact that everything is so fucking terrible that this is just such joyous, wonderful news. Like, I don't think I would give a shit about, like, would some idiot college kid in a diaper in front of his school in a cage?
Yeah.
Like, would that be something that I would have seen? Probably not.
So does somebody want to describe what it is we're talking about right now? The funniest thing to happen in 2017?
I don't know if I'd say that. But it's definitely the funniest thing to ever happen today.
Yeah, so what was that, Megan? I mean...
So I haven't really studied it so much.
Okay.
But from what I can tell...
There's not a whole lot to it.
Yeah, it's just it's just a couple of like college Republicans or turning college Nazis who are like.
Yeah, Turning Point USA, which is the kind of rebranded young
founded
Republicans,
by Eagle Scout,
organized
Charlie
a protest. Yeah, that's right.
Neo-Nazis, basically.
Yeah.
Oh, but
we staged a bit of a protest today,
right,
against college safe spaces, which I'm not convinced they know what that phrase means,
right,
because their protest was all of them wearing diapers and like little kid clothes,
freaking Pokemon
crawling
hats
around
and
in
shit.
a big playpen that they constructed.
Right.
That's offensive. Pokemon is fun for all ages.
You gotta catch them all. Like, the video game is sweet. I'm not gonna lie. I watch my partner play that shit all the time.
Costume.
Right.
But the caption, of course, is like, "This is what libs look like."
Yeah, this is
right.
This kind of behavior is killing the discourse at college.
And it was at Cleveland
and
State.
People who don't agree with them can look at it and go like, "No, that's true, because this is the worst fucking protest I've ever seen."
This is their. I love this. This is their argument. Literally, is liberals, because they love safe spaces and being respectful, are metaphorically in a diaper, and isn't that embarrassing for them? Here I am in a physical, actual diaper.
Right.
To show you how metaphorical this is now.
Yep.
And how embarrassed they should be about their love for respectful language.
That'll show you. I bet you feel embarrassed by me wearing this shit.
To be fair, though, I feel like the liberals do have their own version of that. Like, do you remember that? That's like the fucking, like, I don't know, the dinosaurs on Trump's, on the White House lawn.
Oh, the dinosaur march? Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see that.
What are you doing? Why?
Everybody got in inflatable dinosaur costumes, and was it like pro science or something? I don't even remember.
Okay.
I mean, but yeah, they got in inflatable dinosaur costumes, and they did like the dinosaur march on Washington about like, don't defund science grants or so. I don't even know.
Right.
But the difference is that it's like in, like, toward a good cause versus like.
Sure.
Right.
Well, also, let's not pretend like the personal humiliation between dressing up like a dinosaur and literally shitting your pants to own the libs.
Right.
It's very different.
Are anywhere near comparable. One of them's dorky. The other one is absolutely humiliating.
One of them,
like, I don't think anybody on their side, not on their side, thought that this was a cool thing that they did.
This is almost certainly like. This is their kick. It's gotta be their kick. They are into this shit. Like, this is.
Yeah.
It's any excuse.
Right. No, yeah.
But it's.
I wish there was a
I'm
British guy
shaming.
commentating on it. Oh, yeah, dude. I know.
I literally saw people. I saw people on Twitter today saying, guys, let's not use this as an excuse to kink shame people who like to do little play or diaper play or whatever.
Right.
And that was so funny because I don't think that's at all what's happening.
Well,
no, it's totally not. They are just actually children.
Right.
They're
a big part of baby kinksterism or whatever is shame and embarrassment. So by mocking them, we're actually helping them get their kink. You know what I mean? Like we're participating in it in a positive way.
Dude, it's like performance art or something.
I'm super into that.
That's a fucking Galaxy Brain version of.
I just want our listeners to know that in England, diapers are called nappies. so if someone says that, they're not racist.
But I mean, we've often said the Twitter joke is that conservatives would literally take a dump if a liberal had to smell it, just so they would both suffer. And now they're literally wearing diapers. I mean, they make it too easy. It's just sad.
They're just so petty.
Save a dump.
Yeah, irony and satire are completely dead in 2017. All of the jokes, like, I can't believe that The Onion is still in business because
they're not doing
reality
great.
outclasses it every single time.
Metaphor doesn't work. So like, life is a highway could never be played here.
Well, I'm gonna flip the script from where I was before, and I'm gonna defend irony. I still think it's.
It only took us 50 minutes to get to this point. No, just kidding.
Like, there's still like a function to it, man. Like, it's just. You can't be so lazy about it. You've got to, you can't just rely on that only.
Read the fucking room.
Well, that's... earn my $5 a month.
If you're going to make a really pointed, ironic joke, you need to put more work into it. It needs to be super clever. Like,
set it up the
there
scene.
were certain people who hated A Modest Proposal because they thought that he was genuinely advocating for eating Irish children. And then all of the other people who were pissed off about it were pissed because he was right. Everything that he was saying in the entire essay about how the British Empire neglected the Irish was totally right. And that was why they got pissed off about it. That's good satire. You know, that was a joke that took like 60 pages to write.
That was the satire of Modest Proposal. But what was the satire of Indecent Proposal? Just kidding. How did they establish that scene?
80s Hollywood, as we've learned, was a very different time.
God bless you, Robert Redford.
I always get Indecent Proposal mixed up with all of the other ones that were a lot like
the
it
Vegas
at the time.
one with Nicolas Cage or whatever.
Is that the gritty?
Well, there's a Basic Instinct.
Crime drama. Is that the right genre?
Yeah, gritty crime genre where there's probably a lot of boobs
seduction and intrigue,
like rough sex, probably.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think the.
Oh right, yeah.
Yeah. So, what would you do to own? What would you do to own a conservative? What would you do to own an alt-right person? That's the question liberals should be asking.
Oh my god, I wasn't gonna admit this at all, but it's totally
someone on the alt-right, similar to Diaper Boy. What would you do?
It's totally on theme. Okay, so we were at the Great State Fair of Texas last week, and Mom and I were just kind of like sitting out in the plaza watching people go. We were just drinking beer and like people watching. It was great, and a bunch of Marines marched by with like a police escort, and we realized they must be about to do a flag ceremony, and I was like, I should run up to the front of the crowd and kneel just to piss people off. And Tammy was like, no, don't do that. That'd be terrible. And I was like, okay, yeah, I agree.
Oh my god, it's so funny.
Then, but then they started playing just like a canned version of the national anthem, and the Marines shot off like one shot and then started doing the flag ceremony. And a bunch of people who were walking by just like high-fiving motherfuckers wearing like ball caps like stopped and put their hat over their heart, and I was like, fuck it, I'm doing it. So I fucking like sat there on my knee, drinking a beer and smoking a cigarette.
Oh, dude! I hope you had shades on, because that would have been the best.
Well,
it'd be like, this is how we do it from California.
Right. We can't touch on this without the amazing picture that someone posted on Twitter of the guy at the Jets game wearing a shirt that's like, I stand for the flag with respect. After the game, using his flag as like a picnic blanket or whatever as he like sits on the grass.
Yeah, dude. Okay, that was from a Jets game.
Yeah.
Holy shit. I saw. Yeah. What the fuck? Like literally, Boy Scouts taught me that if the flag touches the ground, you burn it. So
we've talked about that. Is that
I would have lit that shit on fire under his ass so fast.
I have burned.
Be like, take this, conserves.
Wait, you burn it if it? That seems like that's like a bigger patriotic crime.
No, because burning a flag has this whole there's this whole ritual about it.
Dude,
it's like a flag retirement ceremony.
You retire a flag by burning it. Like if a flag is worn from wear, you have a flag burning ceremony.
Yeah, you have to play taps.
You have to have a ceremony in order for this.
And it's folded.
Oh yeah, there's like a whole.
Okay, so you're just like
we
out
would do
in the
as Boy
street
Scouts.
burning it because you're like,
No, we weren't like Antifa.
Right.
They're like, first tie your neckerchief around your face so that the police don't identify you. And start chanting something.
That's the capitalist answer to this, right? Yeah, I mean, you could streamline the whole thing. The Boy Scouts have some flags that need to be retired. The Antifa need to burn
Team
some
up.
flags.
Dude,
So,
yeah, they start chanting, "Good turn daily, good turn daily." Yeah, no, I mean, but yeah, that was a skill we learned in Boy Scouts. We learned the proper conditions of handling and disposing of a flag.
I've burned dozens of flags.
Dude, I would have burned that flag under his ass, and I would have demanded everyone.
Would you have done the ceremony around
What's
it?
that?
Like, would you have incorporated the ceremony into this while you were burning?
I
it's
would
like
have
a citizen's arrest.
I would have started blasting taps on my phone no matter what they were paying attention to. I would have been like, here's the taps. I would have maybe taken my hat off, you know, and then screamed, "You're welcome" afterwards, you know. That's what I would do for America. So I don't know that I answered my question, but oh well.
It's beautiful.
I think that's a pretty good answer.
Okay, good deal.
We took it out on a high note again.
I was going to say, that's
did
probably
it.
the highest note we've taken it out on in a while.
yeah, in like a month, easy.
Well, we got to close it out while it's going so good. But, first we wanted to thank you for joining us on the show, Megan. Is there anywhere, where can our audience find you?
Oh, God.
Out there in the internets?
I don't know.
Or should they not find you?
Okay, I am at Meme Witch. Vavitch.
Yeah, Vavitch.
Which, quick note, I got because I was in an argument with some white genocide folks, and they accused me of wanting to
being a witch,
meme white people out of existence, and I thought that was the funniest thing that I've ever heard in my life. And so that's my origin story. Anyway, so that's how I got my name.
A meme is worth 1,000 words.
Double V at Twitter.
Perfect. Memevitch double V at Twitter.
Damn it. Meme witch with double V's. Yes.
Okay. Excellent. Well, and the audience, you all know where you can find us out on the inner tubes, the YouTubes, the Facebooks, the Twitters.
Hey, we're on Reddit now. I'm gonna start posting on Reddit.
Dude.
It's where all the best discourse happens.
Dude, there's a lot of information. I can't wait to get it out there. I can't wait to hear from you all. And you can also...
Yeah, black dudes always do really well on Reddit.
Especially those black bisexual dudes.
Right.
But you can tell us all about it at our individual Twitter handles. You can find me at Shaggy2Trope. Brendan, where can they find you?
They can find me at Brendan Williams with one L.
And Matt, where are you at?
I'm at Matt the Great with a W.
All right, thanks for tuning in, everyone, and we'll see you next week.